South America Group, and our city is Pettare Venezuela. We're going to begin with the landscape environment and then go to program and then mobility flows. But first, the global migration into the city of Caracas and Pettare begins from around the globe. And they flock to Caracas, which is the capital of Venezuela, of which Pettare is a suburb of. And in Pettare, there's 32 major neighborhoods, in which are listed on there. I'm not going to try and butcher all their names.
Okay, so here we have a topographical gradient of the land of Pettare, and so I don't have this on here, but north is going to be along this axis here, and so you can see on the upper left part is where the mountain range starts, and so the city of Caracas and Pettare are wedged up against this mountainside, this mountain range, and that's just the beginning of them. They actually grow much larger than that and continue all the way to the coastline, and there's really no development in those mountains. And here we have a diagram showing the streams of the water runoff coming from that mountain range into the main river that runs through Caracas and Pettare. Here we have a diagram showing the density of tree forestation, and you can see, so the main region in the middle where there's less trees is going to be where the district of Pettare is. And here we have a diagram showing the grades of the slope. And so as you get higher into the mountains and the slope of the terrain becomes steeper, it turns orange. And that's set at anything above 30, 35 degrees, which is very difficult to drive on and to build on.
So this is the rainy and dry season. The blue shows in the rainy season that there's more risk for floods and landslides, and then the yellow shows the lower amount of rain in the dry season. And this is the wind graph. On the other side of the mountains is the Caribbean Sea, and so those southwesterly winds come in and slow down as they reach the mountain range, and Pettare usually year-round it's southwesterly winds that it experiences. And it is also on a fault line between the Caribbean Sea and the South American Plate. And it experiences an earthquake about every 2 to 3 years. And this is just a map of the surrounding earthquakes within 5 years that have affected Pettare.
Is that in relationship to Pettare or more the radiating circles, or is that more illustrative of magnitude?
Those are like magnitude. The largest one is like 6.1 magnitude.
And was this doesn't really align with what you just had up the model space?
No.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
Oh,
make sure.
sorry. Yeah.
Thanks.
So now we're going to jump into program. This is a demonstration of how dense the buildings and housing are. The red is high density, orange is medium, and yellow is low. This is really representative of the fact that Pettare is really like buildings on top of buildings on top of buildings. It's really, really dense. This is like civil services, police, fire, hospital, and then we can see the concentration. So Pettare is pretty much here, and then we can see the concentration of those services is pretty much outside of Pettare, so they don't really have much impact, and it's really hard to control. This is a depiction of the non-residential things around Pettare. And again, you can see a lot of overlap of the 4 up north of the city, but there's really no overlap of all 4 within Pettare, or at least there's no documentation of it. So that's all that really shows up in Pettare is schools and some minor stores. You can see, obviously the larger circles are higher density or higher grouping of them. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so these diagrams, so each one of those circles encompasses the center of a different barrio or neighborhood within the region of Pettare. The orange in the center is the original historic town from when Pettare was formed, roughly somewhere in the 1600s. And then the dark blue circles toward the north represent an expansion of this town during a highway building project in the modern era. And then the light blue circles to the south represent the roughly constructed town during the highway expanding out with very little planning, becoming a slum. As I said, the center city was planned. It was a historic settlement, but the area to the north was loosely planned by low-wage workers when the highway was built. And there was even unplanned regions for low-income workers when they expanded to the northern corner of Pettare and the south edges. Breakdown of materials for these areas. The historic town and the areas toward the center are the most durable of these materials. And the second most durable would be the area built around the freeway when the town was first expanded, and then the least durable and most degradable is the area built by just people who moved into the region and decided to make homes in that area.
Okay, for mobility, there's only one public transit line which runs through the center of Pettare, and it's a metro station which connects to Caracas to the west. The main arterials are located on the north side, which is at the base of the mountains. And then the sub-arterials are located along the river to the south, and then through the center of the city. The arterial network is made up of the main local roads which span throughout the neighborhoods and the housing, and then the local sub-networks of the city span mainly to the south, which most of the space is up to the north to allow car access, which shows the pedestrian zone in blue, which is any area that is not wide enough to fit a vehicle to access.
Okay, so these are the energy areas, so any place that allows for lighting or electricity within Pettare. And as you can tell, they are actually outside of the region itself. The one that is 10 kilometers away is basically the one that distributes all of the energy. And then the one that's a little bit closer is an energy hub that distributes some of the electricity in Pettare, but most of it just to Caracas itself. And Pettare frequently gets a lot of blackouts, especially within this past year they had 3, where they had blackouts for almost 60% of the area in all of Venezuela, most of it in Caracas itself. I didn't get information on percentages on Pettare for more than 2 days. So that caused a lot of problems. And then these are the water reservoirs, and in relation to Pettare and where they can access the water. The one that is furthest away is actually the one where they get most of the water from, and they've experienced a lot of issues with that as far as garbage dumping and also sacrificial animal disposal. So water in Pettare is extremely hard to find, and they come in about twice a week and sell 5-gallon buckets for $4.80, which is twice as much as gasoline. And
And then this is the main body of water of Pettare itself in the southern area, and then the upper is the highway and kind of separates that from Crocus, and it is 72 kilometers wide. It is their access of most of their water that they do get, besides the one at the reservoir, and it is the main area for dumping garbage. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of the waste areas, there's so many high density areas that garbage trucks and things of that sort can't access those areas at all. So garbage just accumulates on these areas that are normally in higher elevation, and they have vertical stackings of these favelas. And so the garbage just kind of sits on top of these houses that people live in. And then from there, the factory pollution, which runs on the outer side on the east, and that kind of is the governmental area and also more of a grid line right outside of Pettare. And then the southwest area, which also is where the river is. Most of them are factories for any of their industry that they distribute throughout Crocus, Venezuela, and internationally. Any like factory industries, so creation of goods, so any of their oil, a lot of it is fabrics and textiles.